Hi everyone, and welcome back to Blame It On Marketing. And in this week's episode, we are going to be discussing customer advocacy and why, for some organisations, it is sometimes just a bit too hard, or at least that's what they think anyway. Me and our esteemed guest definitely feel differently about this subject, so we're really excited to have her. So over to you, Dana, to introduce yourself to everyone.
All right. Hello. Thank you, everyone. So I'm Dana Alvarenga. I am the Vice President of Customer Experience at a company called SlapFive. We're a SaaS marketing platform where we help customer marketers drive customer-led growth with building out customer programs, customer references, customer engagement. And I'm in a unique position because I not only do all of the onboarding, training, customer success side. I also do the customer marketing arm. So I get to be a customer success manager for customer marketers, but then also do customer marketing. So it's kind of a fun space. So I have a lot of opinions on both.
So, should we start with the basics of what is customer advocacy and is it marketing?
Yes, so I look at it as customer marketers are creating programs that will, in a way, like mobilize their customers to help drive those strategic growth initiatives. So that's what the customer marketers are doing. And they're doing this with different opportunities from um, influencing product direction, doing speaking engagements, growing their personal brands, growing their networks through reference calls, being a part of advisory boards. And customer marketing programs help create those meaningful experiences for the customers to drive that growth, the retention, expansion, and advocacy. So customer advocacy is all about nurturing the relationships with these loyal customers that have been successful and engaged in your customer marketing initiatives. That's the package that I like to deliver about it.
Okay, so customer marketing should be producing customer advocacy, essentially. Cool. Okay, I get that. I'm also not a specialist in this area by any means, so I'm just going to be asking real stupid questions. Get ready for that.
But I think we kind of need to do some of that because I think, and Dana, you may or may not agree with me on this, but I think it's kind of customer advocacy has kind of been like, and customer marketing actually, it's kind of like, it's like this sort of weird little hidden bit of marketing that so many people either don't do or they do it, but they kind of go, oh yeah, but customer marketing, they don't contribute to the pipeline necessarily, they don't contribute to revenue necessarily, we can't really measure what they're doing, so they're sort of siphoned off over here and they kind of work with customer success and they just do like customer comms, or at least that's what everybody thinks they kind of do. But that advocacy piece is so powerful because we know, and we see this all the time, that when a referral comes in from a customer advocate or someone's had an interaction with an advocate, that deal is more likely to close and more likely to close quicker than something that's been influenced by a salesperson or marketing. And especially in a world where, we were just talking about this before you came on, Dana, where in order to even create a deal, we now need to have so many more touch points with a business. It went from like 8 to now like 42 touch points before something will close. Customer advocacy is going to like literally like speed that up really, really quickly. So it's like this really integral thing, but I will stop for a sec, but Dana, because I will just keep going. So
Yeah, and no, I agree. And with that too, it's all about kind of the new way of looking at customer marketing and advocacy is that it's an ongoing customer program and it's a two-way exchange of value. The old school way was just you're begging for favors, be a reference, let me put your logo on our website, can we get that happy quote, all of that cheesy stuff that's like the old school marketing that is just the big logo, the flashy quote, but then you see the person's name in like teeny text below it. And it's this new way is bringing those advocates and using customer marketing and advocacy as that two-way exchange of value where the company is going to get great insights and great feedback and testimonials and customer voice, but then the customer is elevating their brand, helping their career. So it's that kind of switch that it's still happening. It's not across the board, but it's beginning to catch on, which is great to see because I don't want to see any more websites full of just logos and happy quotes. I want real advocates talking about what they're really doing.
And to be honest, it's getting a little bit harder to get those logos, right? Like if you don't have a good relationship, people are just going to be like, nope, do not put me on your website. Do not use my logo. You can't just kind of sneak it in there anymore.
Yeah, that's true. But you're more likely to get them to share their experience, maybe even if it was a bad one, but you helped overcome an objection for them, or they had a rocky implementation. They'll talk about it. People like to talk, and they want to talk about what they're doing in their role and in their job. It helps them, and they want to talk about it.
Yeah. And what I find so interesting about that whole thing about people talking is that we all know that when you've done something wrong as a company, people are really quick to be like, don't do anything with them. That was an awful experience. Like, especially I'm sure for our listeners who are in customer success, they're like, yep. But when good stuff happens, we kind of just go, oh, they said something really good and we now don't know what to do with it. And I think there's all this kind of like, I think that's where people don't understand, like you say, Dana, that it's a two-way thing. It's got to be mutually beneficial, but also you can get your arms around it and you can systematize it and you can put a program in place that helps to elevate your customer voice. So on that sort of thread, why don't some companies invest in customer advocacy from your side?
So I think it's, again, that the old way versus the new way. They're just stuck in that old way of the little black book of references that sales knows there are 2 customers they can call if they need a reference. They don't tell anyone it's happening, and it's done. I mean, it's at every organization, mostly in the SaaS tech space. And I think it's just not understanding the value that advocacy, when done right with the right customer marketing programs, will help expansion, will help growth. And if you're not able to tie it to revenue, that's why companies aren't investing in it. So you need to be able to be tying it back to revenue as one part. So the companies that are investing are seeing that value where customer engagement is tracked, not only to avoid burnout of those customers that are getting overused, but they're tying it back to revenue within that ongoing program. So that's definitely a big thing to tap into. If they're seeing the burnout is happening of their customers, the light will open up. But even more, if you're able to tie it back to influenced revenue and understand that big view, and it's from the top down, they're going to invest and they're going to do well, and they're going to see growth and cross sell and upsell and a lot of renewals.
This makes me think of another issue which sounds quite similar to this. Essentially, especially in SaaS tech companies, I don't know about anyone else, we kind of almost see functions as like their own thing, and we see like lead sources and like influence as their own like separate little boxes. So I know that some companies even struggle to like do marketing after a salesperson is in touch with somebody, let alone after they're a customer and you then want to build that relationship. So like I feel like the issue's probably way worse on the customer side than it is on the sales side, because you can kind of justify and be like, hey, deals will close faster. But on the customer side, like that, yeah, I can't think of any like scale up companies that are less than like 3 years old that are doing good customer advocacy that I can think of, except for where we used to work, but because we got Emma, so that was great. But yeah, it's a weird one.
And it's about the data too, like Salesforce data. A lot of the clients that I work with, when we bring them on board, we do a lot of what customers do you have, what have done things with you, do a little bit of background, who's raised their hand, who's done a case study, who's done a reference. And it's in 6 different spreadsheets. Some of it's in Salesforce, some isn't. There's a reference button in Salesforce that's like 50% used. Maybe it's used in North America, but not used in EMEA. Like it's all over the place. So you need to peel back all of the layers and break down those silos of the messy data and bring everything to one place first as a first step, before you can even dream about attributing it or tracking the revenue. And that's the hardest part. But once that's done, it's easy after that. But that is the hardest part.
Yeah, and it's also about deciding what you want your customer program to look like and what you want your end game to be, right? Because I think this is, again, in lots of the sort of like marketing specialisms, if you like, it's sort of, there's a kind of uniform approach to some stuff, whereas with advocacy and customer marketing, it's not one size fits all, really. I mean, yes, in terms of some of the metrics we measure, they should be, but the way that you go about it and what you want to happen as your end outcome, that might be completely different to the way someone else has done it. And again, that's where I think it gets difficult, because people are like, well, so how do I make this a scalable, predictable thing? How do I make sure I track it? What are some of the benchmarks out there for the, customer marketing or customer advocacy? And it's a little bit like, well, we'll know once we start doing it and we start tracking it and start measuring it. But until then, we don't necessarily know, because lots of companies haven't invested in it before and we just don't have the data. I think it sort of ties into some of the newer marketing things like community, for example, where it's very similar space where we don't have all that kind of like benchmarked predictable data that you would expect from other things like your demand gen. You kind of know what you should expect from that. So when it comes to advocacy, Dana, do you think it is scalable and predictable?
So I think it's scalable and predictable if you're making it an actual formal program. So again, tying back to get all those messy spreadsheets where you're tracking things all over the place. Customer success is doing it, products doing it. Get it all together, make a charter, build an internal team of executives that are kind of on board with making a customer program, a customer marketing program successful, and make it an official rollout. Like not just haphazardly saying sales nominate here. Build a formal program, which means a formal invite out to customers, allowing them to select what activity types that they want to do, understanding what different things that they like, so you can have those surprise and delight gifts afterwards. Kind of the whole package from beginning to end of what the customers want to do, things that they like, and then educate and training sales on it, that it's a sales differentiator in the sales process, that you have this formal program. And then that will then get them more comfortable. They'll see they close deals with it, that people within the customer program help with references to help them close additional deals. You're able to then track all of this. And once it's up and running and live, again, you can scale it, track it. It's not about how many members are in your program. I say invite all of your customers. That's don't make it behind a walled garden and they can't see anything. Open it to all. And it's not necessarily about how many are in there, but what they're doing in that two-way exchange of value of what they're getting and what you're getting from them.
Do you have any like concrete steps that you would take to go from, let's say I'm totally sold, I want to do this, we've got the resource to do this, but I need to sell this into then the business? Like what kind of steps would you say a head of marketing should take to get there?
Yeah, so I typically like to look at it as like a 4-phased approach for rolling out a program, where you're doing your internal planning, then you're building it, then you're managing, and the managing never goes away. It's ongoing management. You want to refresh it every year, and then the measuring aspect. So that's kind of the 4 phases of it. And the beginning, the planning stage, is again doing that research internally, who's done things, do an internal roadshow, figure out what customers have done, talk to your customers, big one, not everybody does it. Talk to your customers, ask them what they would like to do with being a part of a customer program, figure out what you can do to scale it, what you would do to report on it, and yeah, and build that internal council. That's a big thing. Not having executive buy-in. I've built just a customer advisory board at a past life at another company, and it was something the board wanted, and I ran customer programs, so it was on me. Had 2 of the 4 like product managers on board, thousands of customers. We had 4 people in this cab. I'm like, this is awful. It was so bad, because it was just like, do this, and then one meeting in a boardroom, and then no one supported it afterwards. So it's you have to keep executives engaged, and because they're the ones that are going to tell product sales to help you nominate new customers if you need it. Get it out to your customer base, not just you, because you might not be the one with the relationship with the customers. That might be sales, that might be customer success. that you want them to promote this program and to get people excited about it. Because most times customer marketers are a team of one. So you can't do it all. You have to build those internal relationships to help it be successful.
You absolutely need those advocates for your advocacy. I think when I was running the program that we did at Clear Review, I think I spent as much time with the team internally getting them excited about running a customer advocacy program as I did speaking with customers and doing the marketing side of stuff as well. And that was the key. It's like you then become this kind of like linchpin between product sales and customer success, which then everybody wants to come to you and wants to have like you involved in their conversations with their customers because they know it's going to mean good things for them. One of the things I'm really a fan of is that if you can have a company-wide advocacy goal, and that might be an NPS. It might be, I don't know, we need to make sure that, 20% of our customers are advocates, whatever it might be. That might be a slightly arbitrary one. But if you can have a goal that's a collaborative goal that's set out about advocacy, then it means that there is kind of an incentive for customer success, sales, product, everybody, marketing to be aligned on it. So it's like our ultimate goal with our customer journey is to make sure all of our customers become advocates in some way, shape or form. And if we're all kind of thinking with that mentality, then you can do it. And then it does become this scalable thing. And it also becomes really exciting for everybody involved because there is nothing nicer than seeing a client say something nice about you. And it might not even be your product. It might be like, oh, actually, X person was really great in the sales process, but they post that on LinkedIn about you. And that's really, really nice. So I think it's got to become like a business goal and a strategy almost, rather than just this sort of like, it's something that marketing's going to do because we need to do it because we need case studies on the website, which I'm just not a fan of. So yeah, I think making sure if you want to do it and you want to do it right, company goal. And then if you really want to get to it, like we did at Clear Review, set a revenue target for it as well. Because we got to the point where we could do that because we knew it was scalable and predictable. So we knew roughly how much advocacy was going to contribute. So yeah, if you can be that ballsy, I'd say go for it.
100%. And some of those additional, like those customer influence events, I like to call them, could be like an opportunity that started from a referral, reference calls, customer content views. So as much as people hate the written case studies, there's some people still, they want it for SEO, they want them on the website, just have them. But viewing of customer content views, on-site visits, if that applies in different industries. So all of those could be tied back to the opportunity pipeline, which is huge. So yeah, I like that. If you can be ballsy about it and do it 100%, that would be successful.
I don't want us to just blow by this point of the fact that customer advocacy is kind of everyone's job, because it's everyone's job to make sure that the customer has a good time regardless of which bit of your business it's touching. And I think, again, you mentioned that a customer marketer is usually a customer marketer team of one. And one of the things that Emma did and spent so much time on was literally just helping other people in other functions that then would be able to understand why we do customer advocacy, to then be able to do the customer advocacy. So yeah, have you guys got any more input on like the how you maybe should be working with sales or with CS or with product to make sure that you're kind of moving these goals forward?
Yeah, I think the aspect of doing that internal roadshow, that internal education of what the program is all about, and bringing them in, like Emma was mentioning, bringing them into the goals. Like one of my clients, she just recently had sales training rolling out her customer reference program to build advocates, and asked each sales rep to nominate one customer within the next 2 weeks, just one, and like was able to send back to management, like which ones have done it, which ones not. I mean, sales don't want to be called out and they're not on a list. Everyone wants their name on a list when you're in sales. That's why you're in sales. So it wasn't offering them money or anything up front. It was just recognition. So one, educating and going back and getting into these sales all hands meetings. And the biggest miss, I think, in the whole world of customer marketing and advocacy right now is customer success. There are not enough customer marketers or customer advocacy professionals tied to customer success like they should be. And I educate customer success professionals like on a regular when I go to different customer success events. They're like, oh, advocacy, that's references. I'm like, no, it's so much more than that. And oh, customer marketing bugs me for a customer for a case study and I ignore the email. I'm like, no, don't do that. So there's a big silo, and I think customer success is protecting their customers, and customer marketing just isn't building the relationships the right way or positioning their program in the right way to get customer success on board. So that's like my mission. Anytime I'm out in networking and meeting people in customer success, I'm like, customer advocacy is so much more than after a customer renews, you check them off as an advocate. It's not that anymore. They're an advocate as soon as they purchase your product, and invite them into a program right then and there and make it part of your onboarding. So that's my mission out there of bridging the gap. I say customer marketing and customer success should be siblings, not cousins, is my phrase I like to say.
I agree with you. I think, in all honesty, the program that I ran, the reason it was so successful was because basically I was like an extension of their team. And like Ruta said, like it was my absolute mission to help them first. Help first, customer success, which is then on you as the customer marketer to go, I'm going to help you, and I'm going to think of all of the crazy ways that I can do that. So I used to go on, and maybe this is advice for some customer marketers. They might all go, oh my God, I don't know if I can do that. But I used to go on pretty much every single quarterly business review that went on with most of our customers. And I would listen in. So if a customer had a challenge or whatever, I'd make a little note of what that was. And then I'd be like, oh, but I was on this other QBR where a customer had a similar thing and they resolved it. So can I then introduce those two customers to each other to help resolve the challenge that customer has? And therefore it's like another version of a referral. And obviously as a CSM, it's amazing because all of a sudden you've got two customers talking who one solved the problem and we've saved the client. And that was when I started to see like, oh, hang on, I can see the spark lit behind the customer success manager's eyes now, because they're like, hang on, this is really good. And then the other side of that is where, because you're a customer marketer and you are in conversation with people who are generally probably, you know, if they've bought a bit of SaaS, they may be struggling to communicate what the bit of tech does for their business. But if you've got a marketer on the call who can say, actually, here's some suggestions about how to communicate what it is you're doing, another win for a customer success manager, because they don't have to fluff their way through that or offer up bad advice about marketing. So you can kind of step in and be a bit of a, you know, like an extra pair of hands in some of those conversations, and also try and help their clients. And if you start to do that and you can gain their trust, then they will let you. In fact, actually, they'll be knocking on your door to be like, yeah, talk to my customers. If you can build that trust with them. But it's those initial things, like see yourself as an extension of their team, and that you're just there to help in the first instance.
And also, you'll be surprised, like, you'll be surprised about how little people know of like the tools and the things you have available to you in marketing, like retargeting, mass outreach, whatever else we want to look at. And then you tell a CS person, we're like, well, yeah, we can set up some ads. So once they're reaching their renewal 3 months before, they start getting, you know, our ads again and getting excited about a product. So it should help you have those conversations. And they're like, what? You can do that? So you have so many like tools and things at your disposal that CS probably doesn't even know exists, because it's not their job to know it exists. So yeah, just be creative. I think that always helps. So if we are about to create an advocacy program, what are some of the key things that we should measure? Because we spoke about measurement, but what are kind of, let's say, your top 5 things that everyone should be measuring if they're building a customer advocacy program?
So you want to be obviously just know all of your numbers. So not only looking at how many customers have one advocate versus not, how many industries do you have advocates in, how many acts of advocacy did each advocate do. Those are kind of your basic easy numbers to know, and they're still valuable and super important. But then looking back at sales win rate, sales cycle time, um, time to close for a reference, how long that took, report on renewal size. Those would kind of be the big benchmarks that, or the dollar amount for cross sell, upsell. You could look at those and then slice and dice it monthly, quarterly, year over year to be able to measure and show the impact of your program.
So it's almost like taking just the normal sales and CS stats and then putting a filter of what was affected by the work that we've done, essentially.
In all of those acts of advocacy, from a customer speaking at an event, they were on a podcast, they did a webinar, they did a reference call, referral, they did peer-to-peer networking, whatever your list. I have about a dozen lists of I call them the activity types willing to do. All of those. It can be in any format, written, audio, video, whatever they're sharing their voice, that's an act of advocacy.
I don't know if you can answer this or not. You probably we'll see how it goes. So obviously you work at a company that specializes in this and the tech for this. But I would love to ask you, so we've discussed lots of things that will make a customer advocacy successful, customer advocacy program successful, excuse me. But what are the some things that you've seen maybe in the clients that you've had that didn't run a successful customer advocacy program, so that maybe we can avoid those things or try and amend them from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I think the pitfalls, or where they don't get up and running as quickly, again, comes back to the data, and it's universal. So we do a lot of migrations off of other platforms, or if they're using just spreadsheet data and migrating it all in, and then once it's all in one place, it's like, whoa, we're missing this, or this doesn't match up, or we've been tracking industries naming this way, and in Salesforce it's labeled this way. So it's one, just making sure before you're ready to get into a platform that you either know you're going to have to do some data cleanup, or make sure you're ready just to start fresh with the data. Pick which one it is, because if you're tracking something from a marketing world in some sense, and then Salesforce does it in other, you need, if you want the two to speak together to attribute to revenue and to have a program synced with two-way of data pushing back and forth to a platform, you need to be consistent with your data. So that's the biggest thing, of where you don't get up and running and you don't have an influence revenue quickly because you needed to do a lot of data cleanup, which it's just a band-aid you have to rip off, because then once it's clean and great, you have the same information flowing back and forth and you're able to attribute that revenue. And no executive buy-in. That's the other piece too. If you have your own budget in customer marketing and you're able to go out and purchase and buy a platform, but you aren't tying what you're doing back to strategic growth initiatives in your company, you'll probably be the first to go. Not only your program, but maybe you and your tools that you're using. So you need to make sure you have a seat at the table. What are those strategic growth initiatives? We do a customer-led growth strategy workshop with all of our clients when we start, and we insist that the CMO, the CCO, VP of marketing, head of sales, all of those strategic players are in this meeting. So they not only know what the customer marketer is doing, but we understand what their strategic growth initiatives are. So the customer marketing professional can tie back what they're doing with their program to support them.
And do you find that typically the budget lies within the marketing team then for something like this and actually paying for customer advocacy activities?
It's across the board, either that or marketing ops, or sometimes customer success. And I've seen a lot more customer marketers under product as of late too, product marketing. So it's really depending on the industry, depending on the company, it's across the board.
And I assume it doesn't matter too much as long as you do have that executive buy-in. It's not too much of a
Exactly.
struggle. Okay.
Exactly. As long as in executive buy-in from all key parts, product, sales, and CS and marketing, you need all of those key players because you're supporting all of those areas. You're that middle spoke of the wheel.
It's such an important part of of marketing, especially at the moment. Like, I feel like there's so many companies who are going, oh, we're down on our chips, but we're not going to invest in customer marketing because of everything we've said, because they feel like it's too hard, and they'll go down the outbound sales route. But it's like, man, you're sitting on a gold mine, but you do need to invest, and you do need to like make sure that that customer marketer, if you're going to have that person, is supported. But also as a customer marketer, I think the customer marketing people I know are generally really resilient in a way that I've not seen necessarily other marketing functions have to be, because you are that like conduit in between everybody. Like, I don't know, Dana, if that's your experience as well, but like generally they're a group of people who are like fiercely passionate and very very resilient because of that relationship building that they have to do.
Exactly. Oh, 100%. And that's why about 3 years ago we spun up the group therapy for customer marketers, because yes, you have that resiliency, but you also need that group therapy of like, am I the only one? And no. And it's such a wide community of sharing too, that you aren't doing, it's not a competitive industry where one customer marketer is doing it this way and they've found out the secret sauce of how to do X, Y, and Z with their program and buy in with executives. No, they'll share the template. They'll share the email they sent to the CEO about introducing some part of their program or results that they have. Customer success is big about that, but customer marketing, I think, is even more big about just a great community of customer marketers, which I think will help the industry grow as a whole. And then it helps companies grow because you're making your existing customer base be successful and excited to work with you. So
if it does nothing else but improve renewals, it's still worth doing, even if you don't get referrals or however it might end up. If it gets them to renew, it's fucking worth doing, right?
Yeah, 100%. And the customers that leave, you build these advocates and these relationships. I've had customers myself that have gone to 3 different companies and brought on our product because they were an advocate, and not because, not SlapFive in general. It was me and SlapFive, the experience and the knowledge and the high touch model that we bring to them. They wanted that, and there's other platforms out there for every technology. There's competitors everywhere. So be that relationship piece, so you're not just looked at as just a vendor. You need to be that relationship, and advocacy helps do that.
Yeah, you got to get in the top. It's the top 3, isn't it? If you're not in the top 3 vendors, when the budget gets cut, you're going. So it's like, if you don't have the decent relationship, and that is where, again, that just goes back to that whole point about, being plugged into customer success, because they are the people who have the relationships. So it's like, advocacy will support that relationship. You will retain your clients no matter where they go, and they will also say good things about you, because let's be honest, I don't know about any of you guys, but I don't buy tech that someone I know hasn't used, like, anymore. I wouldn't necessarily take a punt. I wouldn't take a punt on stuff that I haven't used, especially if it's really, really expensive. I'm gonna wanna have that like genuine conversation with a peer about the tech or whatever it is I'm buying. So I think people, even at the bottom of all of this, if people just remember that about customer advocacy, that it's literally that conversation that you're trying to influence that makes such a difference to your pipeline, your revenue, then you're on the right track. It's like, if you can just remember that, that's the conversation you want to influence. I think, yeah, you're doing the right stuff.
Is there anything that we should have asked you, Dana, that we haven't asked you yet?
I don't think so. I think we got all the key points, and again, it's just advocacy is supporting these customer marketing programs. But advocacy, again, we'll say it again, it's more than a quote. It's more than references. Like, it's so much more. And that that just, I don't know how many, we need to shout it from the rooftops, because it's not universal yet, and I'm excited for when it will be.
Should we get t-shirts that say "Don't bribe people with wine" on them? Because that's the thing that I mean I'm okay with it after a certain if it's appropriate and it's like the right thing to do, because there's been that mutually beneficial relationship, or you're like, oh, congrats, advocate, you went and got a new job, we're so proud of you, like, whatever that might be, then that's different. But don't be like, oh, you put your logo on our website, here's loads of free stuff, or like, we'll give you free stuff for putting the logo on the website. It's just not how it is anymore.
That's paid advocacy versus earned advocacy. My CEO coined that term a while ago. You want earned advocacy, not paid. You don't want to bribe up front or beg for favors, because it won't be authentic either. If they are doing a video or a webinar, it's like, well, I'm doing this in the back of their head because they're giving me this $100 gift card, or they're giving me this case of wine, whatever it may be. If it's authentic and truly they see it as an opportunity to share their voice, to give back and give their thought leadership, it's so much more impactful and authentic when it's delivered that way. It's just, it is.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, Dana, thank you so much. I know I've learned a bunch, and you guys are great. And if anyone wants to learn about customer advocacy, reach out to Emma and Dana. They clearly have a lot to say, which is in the best way possible. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you on the next episode.